Stevens.
New York attitude, Florida charm. Talk so hot, it's a 4-alarm. Right, smart, unafraid. A double shot of truth on your radio waves. Hey, hey, oh, whoa. Time to crank up your radio. Hey, hey, whoa, whoa. Time for the Rick Stevens Radio Show.
Well, hey, what's going on? It's your buddy Rich Stevens. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you're doing well. Listen, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get right to it. Apparently, there was a quid pro quo, if you believe the Washington Post. That's according to what a senior U.S. envoy in Ukraine told lawmakers in the House in a closed-door session yesterday. Closed door. The acting ambassador, William B. Taylor Jr., said that Donald Trump held up the release of military aid to Ukraine until it said it would investigate Joe and Hunter Biden and the 2016 election. Now, of course, this contradicts the president's claims that he didn't use the aid as leverage for his own political gain. And the testimony by Taylor was called damning by one Democrat, and the Washington Post somehow got a hold of Taylor's 15-page opening statement, and in it he said, quote, that it was crazy to make aid to Ukraine contingent upon probing the Bidens. I mean, Taylor also said that several officials from the Pentagon, the CIA, the State Department, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, all tried to convince the president to release aid to Ukraine, but he wasn't having any of it. I mean, this is what's going on for the last 2.5 weeks in Washington. So let's chat about the hearings behind closed doors, first of all. Why aren't these hearings transparent? I mean, the guy that testified yesterday, I'm hearing that it was third-hand information. But why behind the closed doors? Why don't they let the cameras in? Well, they're doing this for two reasons. One, so they can at least think they're controlling the narrative, which is what they're doing, in the Washington Post and the New York Times. And two, they know it's a farce, and they don't want you and me to witness any of it. I mean, here's the thing. While they're doing this joke of a witch hunt, nothing else is getting done. Like real things that matter. Now, think about that for a minute. How much money did these people in the House waste over the last 2.5 weeks? God only knows. And then there's another big controversy that happened yesterday. And this just goes to show you, well, let me tell you about this, and then I'll go back for a second. Someday, if a Democrat becomes president and the Republicans win the House, even by a tiny margin, they can impeach the president without due process or fairness or any legal rights. All Republicans must remember what they are witnessing here, a lynching, but we will win. What was that? That was a tweet that the president sent out yesterday. Now, this isn't the first time that a so-called racially charged word was used in a high-profile political battle. You might recall back in 1991, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas said his confirmation was like a high-tech lynching. Now, if there's a big controversy, and Clarence Thomas, last time I checked, happens to be black, it obviously didn't bother him by saying it. But the literal lynching is from these Democrats who are now against the president even more so, and say that they're so offensive. One of them even went as far as saying, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you know how many people who look like me have been lynched since the inception of this country by people who look like you? Delete the tweet. That was Congressman Bobby Rush, who, of course, is a Democrat. So because he said these things, these hearings are out of control, something like this, and it's like a lynching. Now, immediately, all these black folks in Congress are the ones that got offended by this. But I got to be honest with you. When I read the tweet, the first thing I thought of was the Wild West, where, if I'm not mistaken, they did lynchings. They did lynchings of criminals, black and white. Or at least that's what I've seen in the movies, and I seem to remember this from my school days learning about this. They would hang people all the time in the Wild Wild West. So, you see, right away, and again, it's the Democrats that are trying, Democrats, there you go. They're trying to steer the narrative to live up to the hype behind the mainstream media. I mean, if this wasn't going on right now, this is the only thing CNN's talking about. It's the only thing MSNBC is talking about. They don't talk about anything. Oh, this is terrible that he did this, blah, 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 blah. How come? And don't dare tell me, Rich, why are you going back in time? This is very relevant. How come when Hillary Clinton was given the list of questions for one of those final debates, that seemed to be okay? And not only was it okay, but what's her name? I can't even remember her name. She got hired by CNN, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was involved as well, she got reelected because the people in Broward County are stupid. No offense to you if you're in Broward County. But it's just, this is the kind of stuff that just amazes me. It's kind of like the free pass. There's a two-way street, and you're always going the wrong direction. Unless you're a Democrat, then you're always going the right direction. And regardless of what party or what side you're on, this is just another example of the hate for this president. The amount of crap that comes out. I mean, the Washington Post and the New York Times, and there's Vanity Fair magazine and all this stuff. You know, it's amazing to me that people don't by now realize this. But I guess if you're on the left, this is what you want to hear. That's how they're selling newspapers. Not that many, but they're selling them and posting this stuff and putting it online. I got to tell you, it bothers me so much because those that really believe, I mean, if you turn on, I think I mentioned this the other day. It was either Thursday or Friday last week. Stephen Colbert, who I can't stand, who had it was a repeat show. I don't know why it was a repeat show during the ratings, but it was. I didn't know it until I started watching it. But he had Hillary Clinton on and her daughter Chelsea. And first of all the things and all the jokes and everything, it's, you know, if somebody, well, actually, let's go another step, another direction. If anybody had dared to say the things that they're saying about President Trump, about President Obama, oh my God, what would have happened? You see, nobody went there because they knew you don't do that. Here was our first black president, and people are not going to, make jokes about him. They wouldn't dare. But it's okay for the left to do all this crap about President Trump. I swear, and I know I've said this before, so forgive me for repeating myself, but if President Trump went to the beach in, say, Jones Beach in Long Island, and he was able to part the sea and walk across to Europe, they would still find fault in what he was doing. They'd call, let's face it, that's what they would do. I got to tell you, this really infuriates me to no extent. It's so bothersome to me that it really, truly bothers me. And it should really, truly bother you just as much as it bothers me. Or at least I hope it does. All right, totally different direction. Have you ever had serious feelings for someone and they turned around and they dumped you in a friend zone? I know this has happened to me, but I got to tell you, it's one of the worst things when you have feelings for someone and they make it pretty clear that they just want to see you as a friend. Has this ever happened to you? There's a new survey. 59% of people say yes, someone's put them in the friend zone. And of course, the friend zone is, in case you're living under a rock, the friend zone is, you're just friends, nothing else, nothing further. Now, this includes 50% of the people who had it happen to them in the past, and 9% who are going through it right now, and I feel bad for that 9%. But, I've been in both. I've been in the 50%, and I've been in the 9%, meaning, I can think about that right now. But that's, life is not always fair. And I guess we could talk about that another time. Listen, by the way, if you want to get in touch, Rich, R-I-C-H, at richstevenshow.com, Rich at richstevenshow.com. You could, of course, just go to richstevenshow.com and click on the contact form, or you could call, leave a text or a voicemail for me, 305-707-7878, 305-707-7878. That's my personal cell, so, Speaking of weird situations, Lori Loughlin and her husband, Massimo Giannoli, have been hit with a new charge. This came out yesterday. This is the college admission scandal. Now, along with the other parents who have pleaded not guilty, the couple has been slapped with an additional charge of conspiracy to commit federal program bribery. Now, this alone carries a maximum 5-year prison sentence. Now, Lori and Massimo have already been charged with several crimes that could land them behind bars for 40 years. And if you forgot, they were accused of paying $500,000 to get their daughters into USC. Now, the U.S. attorney may be hoping to force the parents to take a plea deal. I'm not sure, but I can tell you that they have definitely, Lori and Massimo, have vowed to fight all these charges. Now, you got to realize that all these other people who originally said that they were not guilty have come forward and said, we're guilty, and they're getting what's her name? Felicity Huffman got 14 days in prison. But if Lori only got 14 days in prison, she could have ended this all quickly and gotten on with her life, but instead she's decided to go ahead, and they're going to try and fight it in court. Now, can you imagine if somebody like this ends up in prison? It's not going to be a prison like Felicity Huffman, where she's like in a almost like a dorm. It's a very minimum security facility, and she had this past weekend. I think she surrendered herself on Wednesday or Thursday, and over the weekend her husband and daughter were already visiting her, and she was walking around freely. It's obvious. I also heard, by the way, that she's getting her meals served before anybody else. She's first on the chow line. She's obviously getting preferential treatment, which they said she wasn't going to get, but she's obviously getting it. So we'll see what happens with this. There's a lot of crazy people in the world, and one of the crazes that people, there's people that have died from this. People trying to get what you would call daring selfies or the ultimate selfie. Well, there is a woman that was on a Royal Caribbean cruise, has been banned for life because she dared to attempt one of these selfies. Now, officials say, and we don't know her name, what I bet you she lives in Florida. She climbed over the railing of her balcony. This is on the Allure of the Sea ship, to take this dangerous selfie on the ship that was going to Haiti. Now, there was a passenger a few rooms away, happened to see her standing on the outside of the railing and took a picture of her. That's how they busted her. And this guy that took the picture reported it to the ship's captain, I guess. And Royal Caribbean managed to track her down when the ship arrived in Jamaica, and they kicked her off. And they also informed her that she'd never be allowed to sail on any of Royal Caribbean ships ever again. There's been people, I'm afraid of heights. I don't know, something happened to me when I was younger, and I believe that's why I'm afraid of heights. There were people that, there's a certain point in the Grand Canyon where it's stunning. And my God, if you've never been to the Grand Canyon, it's someplace you want to visit. Put it on your bucket list and get there. It's just beautiful, and it's just awe-inspiring. But there's several people have already died by standing on the edge of a cliff, which I don't know, you have to climb over a barricade to get to this, and they're taking these selfies. And several people have taken one step too many backwards to try to do it. They end up dead. Is it worth it to take a selfie that is, pretty cool, but die over it? I don't think so. Speaking of dying, we keep hearing year after year or month after month almost, there's these viral challenges that people do, and sometimes there's been a few, where the money was raised for good causes, but there's some that are just dumb. And a lot of kids do these things mainly, but sometimes it moves on to, adults as well. I mean, remember the Ice Bucket Challenge a few years ago? That money went to, I forgot who it went to, but I remember I did the Ice Bucket Challenge. I was scared to death. I did the Ice Bucket Challenge with a judge friend of mine where she wanted me to pour the bucket of ice and water over her head. Now, even though we're friends, it was the weirdest, scariest thing ever, because if you did that to a judge, I mean, that's a crime. I remember having a conversation with him before the night before the show, and I said, are we really going to do this? Because, I don't want to get in trouble. And she laughed and said, Rich, you're not going to get in trouble. But there was a part of me that was scared to do it, even when we were actually doing it. And we did it. We did it live on the radio. So let me tell you about this one. There's a social media generation that apparently just discovered gravity, hence this new viral challenge. And it's hard to understand why it's a thing, but most of these are hard to understand why they're a thing anyway. This one is called the Gravity Challenge. You have someone dump water on your head, or you dump it on your own head just to prove gravity works. Have you ever heard of anything so stupid in your life? And people are posting these Gravity Challenge videos online, and then they use the music from the song Gravity from John Mayer. I mean, this is nothing like the Ice Bucket Challenge a few years ago, because this water dumping is not doing anything for any kind of charity. It's just utter stupidity, because these people are just discovering gravity. How is that even possible? You gotta laugh. Remember when they had that cinnamon challenge where you had to snort the cinnamon, and that was putting people in the hospital, and things like that can kill you? I mean, we have gotten out of hand. And speaking of getting out of hand, the Joker movie, which is to me, it's sickening, these kind of movies. But there's one scene in the Joker movie, and I recognized it when I saw it. They showed this clip, and it was the Joker, or Joaquin Phoenix. He dances down a staircase, and that's the controversy where Gary Glitter, the pedophile, Rock and Roll Part 2, the song, that's what he's dancing to as he's going down the steps. I recognize that staircase from growing up in the Bronx. It's in the High Bridge section, which is west 167th Street. But now it's become a huge tourist attraction, and people are going to this section of steps to get their selfies and or videos. Some are even putting Joker makeup on to get these pictures. But you see, the thing is, the locals, the people that live there, they're not happy about this at all, because this is apparently a new hotspot in the Bronx. It's on west 167th Street. Now, they're getting the word out about everything from the steepness of the staircase to the roughness of the area where it's located. There's one woman that said, I've literally fallen down these stairs before. Another one said, if you want to get robbed, then sure, I grew up there all my life, and if you ain't from there, don't know people from there, then don't be chilling in the hood. That is the hood these days. And then there was another local who was bummed about the lack of support for the area. And he said, if you're coming here, don't just take a picture on our steps. Buy something from a local business to support the community. I mean, again, it's just the utter, I guess you could just say, stupidity of people. But I guess it's no different. I'm going to tell you one from a long time ago. I don't know if you remember this, but remember when the OJ killing happened? People were actually going to Nicole Brown Simpson's house, where all the blood was on the walkway, and were taking pictures, like leaning down, like right there. They finally had to get police there to block it off and stop people from coming by in the Brentwood neighborhood in California and taking pictures. But people do stupid things like this. And back then, remember, there were no iPhones or Samsung phones, Galaxies, or anything like that. It was just regular cameras. You had to go there and do it. And people were posing like idiots in front of a murder scene. But I think, there's always going to be idiots amongst us. And, now I will say that not the last time, but after that happened, and I went to California a few years after that, I had my friend who lived in L.A. take me to the house. I just wanted to see it, but I didn't take any pictures in front of it. That's almost as dumb as going to the memorial for the World Trade Center and posing for pictures. Who does that? That's not a sight that, I mean, it's a sight to be seen, but it's a somber sight, and it's like going to a cemetery. You don't take pictures of yourself in a cemetery. I mean, there's some people that do because they're idiots. But I've seen so many people post pictures online, finally made it to the World Trade Center Memorial, and here I am standing here. And they're like smiling. Who does that? Speaking of smiling, Conor McGregor, he's under investigation now for a second supposed sexual assault. This happened in Ireland. Now, this is according to the New York Times. The UFC star has been accused of assaulting a young woman last week outside a Dublin pub, and the police report says, which was filed, but McGregor hasn't been charged or arrested yet. Of course, he denies the allegations. It was only a few months ago that he was arrested in another supposed sexual assault in Ireland, too, and he hasn't been charged in that case either. Now, the legal problems could delay McGregor's return to the octagon in 2020. He was born in Dublin, Ireland. That's the tie there. But in March, he announced his retirement, but no one took him seriously. You know, there's more and more of these things coming out. And listen, the whole Me Too movement, I agree with that. Nobody should have, you know, like the Harvey Weinstein stuff and the, what's the guy that just got, that committed suicide supposedly, Epstein. You know, all these kind of things that are happening. I'm glad, or Matt Lauer, I'm glad these people are coming out, but it's, you know, this could have changed people's lives, and it probably did. And just because you're a celebrity should not mean that you have a, you know, a different deck of cards handed to you and you can get away with this stuff. And God only knows how many people are getting away with this kind of stuff right now as I'm talking to you this morning. Okay, let me talk about something else. When I was in Japan the last time, I was with my friend Craig, and Craig knew this girl that lived there, and she was like a little tour guide for us. She took us around to real neighborhoods, not anything that tourists would go to. And one of the places that we went to was a place called Shakey's Pizza. And we knew the name because Shakey's, I've been to Shakey's Pizza here in the United States. I think out west, I'm not sure. But I know that I've been to Shakey's before. Now, obviously, it's different in Japan because they have a Japanese menu. She recommended this pizza that had, it had cheese, it had corn, and red sauce. Oh, and I think some kind of fish. It sounded disgusting, but it was actually pretty good. And the reason I bring this up is because there's another kind of pizza thing going on, and it's called pizza roulette. And it's going on in Japan right now. So if you always wanted to play like Russian roulette, but not kill yourself, this could be something that's just a perfect alternative. Pizza roulette. Let me tell you how it works. You get a pizza and put ghost pepper extract on one slice. And then everyone grabs a piece and eats it. Most of you will be fine, but someone will get that hot ghost pepper and probably start crying at the table. This comes from a Domino's in Japan. Not a Domino's, but all the Domino's are doing this. And they're selling pizza like this that has one ghost pepper covered slice. And they're claiming that they're doing it because of it's called a ghost pepper. They're doing this for Halloween. I hate spicy stuff. My next door neighbor when I lived in Sarasota would grow these peppers on bushes right out in front of his house. And I swear to you that I would just go walk to their front door to ring the bell. My eyes would start tearing. And he would pick one off the bush and just put it right in his mouth like it was nothing. There's some people that could handle the heat, but I certainly wouldn't want to play Russian roulette with my taste buds. I mean, that doesn't even sound anything remotely like I would try. But again, here's the perfect. I guess if you're into that stuff, but why would you want to? I remember years ago there was a chocolate milk challenge, and you had to down like a quart or a gallon of chocolate milk or something like that. I was living in Denver when this was one of those challenge things, and the problem with that is you really can't do it, and it could kill you. So if you're into this ghost pepper thing, and it's supposed to be like the hottest pepper ever in the world. So obviously if you're going for the challenge, you know what the risks are when you do it, but just think about this for a minute. I mean, that freaking thing will not only make you cry, but it's like you burn your insides. All right, speaking of burning, let me tell you this. I can't believe we're almost out of time. Official information coming from the Pentagon today that the U.S. military is going to stop using floppy disks so that they use to coordinate nuke launches. I mean, this is 2019. The military has been using these 8-inch floppy disks in this old-fashioned 70s computer system to get the nuclear launch orders from the president. Now, think about that. Let that sink in for a minute. Are you kidding me? So now, in October 2019, they've replaced the drives with a highly secure SSD storage solution. That's a solid-state drive. I mean, can you believe it took all these years to catch up? It makes me wonder how many things actually go on behind the scenes, like with our military, stuff that we would never know about. I got to tell you, I'm sorry that they released this to the public because it's just a scary thought. Speaking of scary thoughts, there's another thing going on now in the country. There's now 3 airports in the United States. I know Tampa's one, Tampa International. I forgot the second one. And the third one just today is starting this in Detroit, where, remember back in the day when you were taking somebody to the airport and you could go through the gate, through the security and sit at the gate with whoever you were seeing off? Obviously, when 9/11 happened, that all stopped. Now they're bringing it back, and there's several other states that are coming on board to do this too. I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds very dangerous. Now, your friends will have to go through the screening just as you, but it's I don't think that we should be doing that. Why peel back the onion on another layer when everything seems to be going fine? You're just asking for trouble. Anyway, speaking of trouble, I think I've caused enough for one day. I appreciate you listening to the Rich Stevens Show. You want to get in touch, reach out, go to Rich Stevens Show. It's RichStevens show.com. You can hit me on the contact form there, or you can text me 305-707-7878, 305-707-7878, or you can just, just wave, and I'll wave back to you. All right? I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I think tomorrow I got a big surprise for you. And I'm very excited about it. So get ready for that. Right here on The Rich Stevens Show.